Well, taking a look at the AFC North standings, still the three teams looking pretty good for the postseason, even though we do indeed have a long way to go. Well, nobody better to welcome to our show to look ahead to the start of the Big Ten season, and specifically our Ohio State Buckeyes, than All-American linebacker Chris Spielman. Had an illustrious career in the pros, mostly with Detroit, later with Buffalo. Now a Fox Sports NFL analyst, was on the Cincinnati game. Chris, great to have you on the show. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well, safe and healthy, thank God. I want to pick your brain about the Buckeyes and the Big Ten and everything, but first things first, I know you did the Cincinnati game. They going to give the Browns a game this coming Sunday?
Well, they're better than they were last year, and I thought they played pretty decent against Cleveland earlier in the year. The one player that they're missing that I think is significant to their offense is a tight end by the name of C.J. Uzomah, who's been hurt. But you look at Joe Burrow, I think he continues to grow each week. The problem is I think the Browns were a little bit embarrassed, had a bad game against Pittsburgh, and I really think the Browns are a really good football team. They just had one of those weeks. So it's a great opportunity for Cleveland to get back on track, get a division win on the road, and we'll see. I think they'll respond. I really do. I think the Browns will respond.
You grew up in Massillon. Were you a Browns fan?
I was actually, coincidentally, a Vikings fan because my dad was a high school coach for many years in Canton area, and he coached Alan Page at Canton Central Catholic High School. And so when he told me that, I always kind of followed the Vikings. But I do recall, though, the Brian Sipe and Dave Logan and Reggie Rucker and Mike Pruitt and Greg Pruitt. So I recall those games and the Raiders game in the cold and all that stuff. So I did. The Browns probably were my second favorite team.
The fans are down on Mayfield right now, Chris, and fans are emotional, as we know. However, I still say I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, even though I publicly say the book is still out on him until he proves that he can beat legitimate Super Bowl contenders like Pittsburgh or Baltimore. But this is still a learning process for him. Stefanski's in his first year. I think next year will be the real telling year for Mayfield. Your take?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point, Bruce. It's his third offense in 3 years, correct? And this offense is trying to get an identity, and I think if you watch Cleveland, you understand that they're going to be a run-first team. But I get why fans are down. I mean, the week leading into the Colts-Bengals game, the fans wanted to cut Phillip Rivers. And all he does, he comes out, leads them to 400 yards passing, and plays a great game against the Bengals. So the quarterback position is a position where, you're going to get ridiculed. They're ready to throw Teddy Bridgewater out of Carolina after he was on a 3-game winning streak. So it's a week-by-week popularity thing with the quarterbacks in the league. But with Baker, I like Baker. I think he's got a chance to be pretty good. And you're right, there is some patience because it is his third offense in 3 years.
I don't think that Chubb would have made a difference he would have made a difference. I don't think the Browns would have won if we would have had the availability of Chubb. However, that cannot be underrated. You played with one of the greatest of all time in Barry Sanders. Address that if you would.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I did a Browns game earlier this year and against the Washington, and I made a statement. I think Nick Chubb is one of the top 3 backs in the league, and I say that with all sincerity. Just how he makes people miss in the hole and how he runs through tackles, his attitude, he's a team guy. With the combination of Chubb and Kareem Hunt, that's the best 1-2 combination in the league, and I don't say that lightly. You're right. I don't think it would have made a difference Sunday, but for the Browns to get as far as I think they can go, which I do think they can be a playoff team, hopefully he'll get back sooner rather than later because he's that good of a player. And the one thing that Cleveland does have, Bruce, that's really strong and pretty consistent. Now, the other day was a little off, but is that offensive line. I mean, I think that offensive line is as tough, as physical as there is in the NFL.
You were a great defensive player, and Garrett, with the type of season that he's having, in one of our caller segments, they asked me about other defensive ends in the NFL, and I said, I'll take it a step further. I think this kid has the potential to rank with some of the greatest of all time, and I mentioned Richard Dent, and then what happens? Pittsburgh kind of stymies him in the game the other day. But he has that kind of potential, Chris.
He's great potential and really a smart football player. If you watch him play, I mean, his ability to get strip sacks, that's something when we had a chance to meet with him, that's something that he takes a lot of pride in. And, you know, it's very difficult for teams to say, okay, you got to block Myles Garrett one-on-one because it's not going to happen very often. You put that tackle on an island. So when he does draw double teams, you know, that's when your other guys have to step up and win their individual battles. But Myles Garrett is such a value just by his presence on the field because he dictates to an offense of how an offense protects. And then when he does that, that's why it's so important for your other pass rushers to be really talented, and they'll have their opportunities to win their one-on-one individual battles.
You know, we tell our network televised the high school games for many years, Chris, and they sent me down there one year to do the show. It was on a Thursday before, I forget if it was Division II or Division III at that time, the championship game between Athens and Toledo Central Catholic. The quarterback on Toledo Central Catholic was Kaiser, and Burrell was the quarterback of Athens. And I said, and it was like 55-53, the final score. It was unbelievable. They couldn't stop one another. Toledo ran the ball, and Burrell was passing all over the place. And I said, this Burrell's going to be a real star. And obviously at Ohio State, it didn't work out. I don't know what that was with urban style and schematics, but he found a home at LSU. The rest is history. His potential is what I want you to address next in the NFL.
Well, I think when you look at Joe, he's in that learning process. Like he had an opportunity last week, right? A lot of times quarterbacks are defined from come from behind wins. I think we had a stat up there where Phillip Rivers has had somewhere over his career 30-some come from behind wins or last drive wins, or at least to punch it into overtime. And Joe had that opportunity. Now, Joe didn't see a coverage and misread a coverage, and he paid dearly for it. But the thing about him is that he's a very quick learner. He's a very confident guy, and I don't say that in any negative way whatsoever. He's confident because he knows he's good, and that's a good thing. That's what you want out of your quarterback. I think he's making better decisions. He just does not have enough guys around him yet. I mean, just look at the Browns roster, Bruce, and look at the Bengals roster. It's not close, in my opinion, to talent. It's closer than it was last year, but it's not certainly not what the Browns have accumulated as far as running backs and receivers and tight ends. And so Joe's doing a pretty darn good job with what he has. And he's only going to get better the more he sees. And the thing I love about him is, yeah, he gets upset with himself, but he doesn't lose any confidence, and I think he's going to be a great player for years to come. I hope he is. I root for all the Ohio guys, man. Sure. I hope every Ohio guy does great.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was vehemently upset when the Big Ten jumped the gun and said they weren't going to play, when the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 said, well, we're just going to wait and see. We're not making any rush to judgment. Thank God they saw the light, and we're going to have Big Ten football with the Bucs starting against Nebraska Saturday, Chris.
Well, I think everybody's relieved. I mean, we don't make apologies. I don't know anybody that makes apologies for being a football fan in the state of Ohio. I mean, I think that's part of all culture, and I get the whole let's be safe, and I get all that, right?
Right.
But I also get that, I'm a big believer that sometimes in life you got to play through, and you certainly respect the pandemic, but you don't live in fear of the pandemic. And since I think once the Big Ten, I think they tried to make a move to be some kind of, I don't know if it was nefarious or not, but just trying to lead in a certain way. I think they were a little bit surprised that nobody followed them. And then once they were able to figure out, okay, what's the best way to do this and how should we do this, fortunately, they came to their senses. And I do think there was a lot of the pressure applied by parents and players from other teams and fans had a little something to do with them moving forward. Because I do recall, I thought Mr. Warren at one time said the decision's been made and it's not going to change. And it's for sake of fans and for the players and the opportunities that the players are going to get, thank goodness that's changed. And I think we've learned how to deal with this. If the team gets COVID, fine, you postpone a week or whatever. I mean, just keep playing through, though. I'm not a big believer in stopping life. I'm a big believer in living life responsibly, though.
Hear, hear. There's no room for error, though. I mean, with the abbreviated schedule, I remember years when a team could lose their second or third to last regular season game and drop in the rankings and still qualify for the old coalition or now the 4-team playoff. But there's really no room for error this year for the Buckeyes.
No, there's not, and there's no room for error for a makeup game, from my understanding, correct? They didn't build a bye week in there, and I think one thing that the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 did well is, and all of them have had their COVID cases, I think where there's been at least one of the conferences have a game canceled or postponed this year. The Big Ten, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think they have that leeway, so it'll be interesting to see if that comes up, and if a team is like Ohio State, instead of playing, what are they supposed to play, 8 games?
Yeah.
Instead of playing 8 they only play 7, and you got Alabama down there, sitting there at whatever 12-2 or whatever, or 11-1 or whatever it's going to be. I don't know if that's going to play havoc on Ohio State's chances to get to the playoff or not. I have no idea. I don't see anybody in the Big Ten that should beat them on paper.
Yeah, they look great. It would have been such a tragedy if they wouldn't be able to get on the field. Got to reminisce with you a little bit about playing with Earl Bruce and those glory days under Coach Bruce with Ohio State. What did you go? Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. 2-2 during your 4 years against Michigan?
You are correct. Unfortunately, yeah. I thought in the one game we got beat. The one game we had a chance my junior. I won my freshman year, my senior year. The one game we got beat our junior year. We missed a field goal, 46-yard field goal at the end of the game to win it. 2-2. It's it is what it is. It's disappointing. Thanks for bringing it up. I'm a guy that lives in the past, and unfortunately, I never enjoy all the past victories. I only enjoy the past defeats. That's all I ponder on. But I was. It was just a special place, and it is a special place to play football, and to be a part of that game was. I've been very fortunate in my career, not only playing in the Ohio State-Michigan game, but I know you're a Northeast Ohio guy, so you're certainly aware of the importance of the Massillon-McKinley game in Stark County. So it's just I've been lucky.
Coach Cooper had a rough time against Michigan as well as in bowl games. And obviously, Harbaugh's going through the same thing at Michigan. The honeymoon is long over up there. I don't know how much longer they're going to put up with this if Ohio State keeps beating them now that Coach Day has taken over for Urban Meyer, and if Harbaugh doesn't do better in bowl games.
Yeah, I think everybody knows the rules going in, and I think Jim is certainly aware of the rules. And part of the responsibility of a Michigan coach is to beat Ohio State, just as like the responsibility of Ohio State coach to beat Michigan. And I think Jim is as frustrated as anybody. To me, the biggest difference has been the difference in talent accrued. I mean, you look at the amount of depth that Ohio State has and the amount of NFL guys. Now, Michigan had a good year last year, but you look at Harbaugh's tenure and you look at Ohio State's tenure and look at the amount of NFL players that have been put into the league by Urban and Ryan, and take a look at what gyms are. And I just think it comes down to recruiting. And I think the biggest surprise, and I don't know what they have this year, but the biggest surprise to me in Michigan's and Jim's tenure is the lack of a quarterback, right?
Right.
When have they had a quarterback that makes you go, wow? Yeah, and you should probably have that in Michigan. At least we were used to it. Now, unfortunately, they always had to come to Ohio to get their quarterbacks. That's all right.
I had Leroy
and their Heisman Trophy winners. They had to come to Ohio to get everything.
Yeah, well, that's true, especially during Schembechler's tenure. But we had Leroy Horde on yesterday, and he went to Michigan, of course, so I asked him about it, too. And he says, well, if you're a five-star quarterback, do you want to go where they play that kind of offense up there? And I said, but isn't it Harbaugh's job to adapt to the recruit and his style of game?
Well, I think they adapted a little bit with it, and I'm sorry, I forget the kid's name. That was transfer Shea Patterson.
Right.
You know, they went to a little more of a spread when they brought that kid to Ole Miss. But I understand Leroy. By the way, Leroy was a tough back. Man, what a hard guy to tackle. But anyway, I digress. It's just everybody's job to adapt. But, you know, it's also, you know, Jim has a system, and he believes in a system, and he's going to run that system. And that's what you hire. And if you're a quarterback, you usually go to that place, and you know what you're going to get. And I just think there's enough great quarterbacks around the country that they have to be able to find one to come in and be a Michigan quarterback like we're kind of used to seeing back when I played and even after I left. It's just that Jim has not been able to get that guy. And when they do, I think they'll be pretty good, because I do think he's a really good football coach.
Chris, before I let you go, got to ask you about your late wife, Stephanie Spielman Fund for breast cancer research. Tell us how that's going.
Well, it's October. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and you know it's a big fundraiser and push. And the cool thing about our fund, Bruce, and we've since its beginning, we've raised north of $25 million, and every dollar that has gone to research and the funding and to the doctors that are experts in the world, not only local here, but I think we invest in promising cures and promising therapies. And so
that's great.
It's an amazing thing. I mean, it's humbling because my daughter actually is very active with it. She works for Ohio State and the James Cancer Hospital in the development part of it. And of course, you know, in the fundraising arm of it, not just with breast cancer, but with all cancers. And it's, you know, it's something that nobody ever asked to be a part of, right? But when you are, it's such a great group of people and a great cause. And I know from many, many testimonies from people over the last, since 1998 when Stephanie was originally diagnosed, that we've, you know, prolonged somebody's life or actually saved somebody's life through some of the research that has come through this. So it makes it humbling because, you know, that we know that Stephanie didn't die for nothing. There was something very positive and very cool that came out of this. And our faith gives us great comfort in knowing that, and that God used a very difficult situation to help a lot of people. And Stephanie was certainly aware of that and was humbled and honored to do that.
God bless you. Keep up the great work. The great Chris Spielman. Check out his great work at Fox NFL Analyst. Chris, thanks so much, pal.
Okay, take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Chris Spielman joining us on Drennan Live. When we come back, another edition of Fair or Foul.